and welcome back to another video of jPlay. I am Marcus, and according to my last post, it seems that some of you are actually interested to see a video about Homeland. And here I am recording a video of it. As Homeland is a game for 3 to 6 players and is a game of espionage, deception and paranoia, I won't be doing a full playthrough as I don't have enough personalities in me to make it a fun experience, I guess. So I guess I will do a walkthrough session which will, walk you through some rounds of Homeland. As Homeland is by Gale Force 9, and those guys are pretty known for their awesome TV show adaptations such as Spartacus, Firefly or Sons of Anarchy. Homeland is also based on the corresponding TV show. Like other so-called semi-cooperative games, Homeland starts as some kind of a co-op, as 3 to 6 players try to neutralize those threats, at least on first glance. Because each agent might have a different agenda in order to win this game. So, for example, here we have the loyal agents, the political opportunists and the terrorist mole. The first two are kind of on the same side, even though they pursue different winning conditions. The terrorist mole is playing alone though. And there are basically 2 ways he can win the game. For once, he can try to make sure that enough threats will succeed in order to fill up the terrorist track. If this is ever full, the loyal agents and the opportunists will automatically and immediately lose the game. But even though he might not succeed in fulfilling up the terrorist track, he can still win the game by gaining enough victory points through the terrorist tokens currently on the terrorist track. Because the game will also immediately end when the blue-colored agency track is completed, which basically happens when threats are being neutralized. Once full, there is an accusation phase where players can accuse other players of being a mole, and then it's time to actually count your victory points according to your agenda card and your asset cards that will bring you both victory points and helpful special abilities. And the winner is the agent with the most victory points, whereas ties always are in favor of the loyal agents. Setup is done pretty quickly, where you basically only sort the different drop piles, give each player some starting stuff such as agents, soldiers, intel cards and some tokens, and then it's time to assign the hidden agendas. And it's important to mention that there is always one more agenda card in play than actual players playing the game. This way you never know if there is a terrorist mole in play. Cool. Much like Shadows over Camelot, which is working nicely there as well, as it can create some real paranoia. So let's give this one to the yellow player, this one to the grey player, and this agenda card to the black player down there. Of course, each player has to check his agenda card. You normally do that simultaneously, and there is basically no way how you can find out who is in your team and who is not. Then we are already good to go, and the first step of the so-called terrorist turn, which you see here, is to move the terrorist marker, which sounds more dangerous than what it actually is, because we only assign the starting player for this round. And what I really like about this game is the starting player mechanism, as each player puts one of his many case lead cards into a deck. So let's do that very quick. We will shuffle the deck, and each round this top card is being revealed, and this would be the starting player for this round. Pretty cool, so let's check it out. And this would be the grey player. Next we would analyze all imminent threats, so basically all threats that reached the top row of the game board that says imminent. Then we would progress all other threats. As threats are not part of the setup, there are no threats on the board yet, so in your very first round you will directly jump to step 4 of the terrorist turn, where you will reveal new threats. Let's look at the anatomy of a threat, which always consists of a face-down plot card, a face-up organization card, like this one here, so you know with whom you deal with, but not what they have in mind. And last but not least, you place one face-down random intel card on top of this stack, like this one here. And this is either helping the threat to succeed, or might help the agents to neutralize it. As this intel card is random, there is some level of uncertainty who played a particular card, much like Battlestar Galactica, which is one of my all-time favorites. And the last piece of information is at which level each thread started. This has been provided through the organization card, though this thread would start on the guarded level. You always start on the left-hand side because this will be the order of which the threads will be analyzed when they reach the imminent level at a later stage of the game. As I'm simulating a 3-player game here, we will reveal 3 new threads each round, basically 1 for each player. After the 4th step in the terrorist turn, we come to the player turns, starting with a player who holds the terrorist marker. Each player has 2 mandatory actions at the start of his turn. First of all, we have to claim an unclaimed thread. And we do that with one of our case lead cards. This will identify us as the case lead of this particular thread, with all the related good and bad things that might happen with it. And here the grey player decided to be the case lead of this thread, here by the Lone Wolf organization. They are not really sophisticated, as the sophistication shows only a value of 0, so the overall risk is not that high. The impact is also relatively small. I believe this number goes up until 3 as far as I can remember. So overall that's definitely not a bad spot for the grey player to be. After we have claimed a thread, it's time to play some intel cards. Your first intel card always has to be played to a thread claimed by another player. The second intel card can be played to any case, claimed or unclaimed. As the starting player will only find 1 claimed card during his very first turn, he can skip the first half of the mandatory intel card, and so he is allowed to play exactly 1 card to his own case. So I think let's do that now. And I guess he will play an intel card like this. Of course we will put it down face down. We will put our case lead card back on top of it. It's always allowed to check the amount of cards under a thread, but only under certain circumstances you are allowed to have a peek at those intel cards or at the face down plot card, but I will cover that in a second. After those 2 mandatory actions, the player can do the optional actions in any orders basically, but in most cases only once per turn. So I think let's do that now for the grey player. So for once he could turn in an intel card for tokens, and I think this is what we will do. So the grey player will discard this card here, which is a yellow card. Hopefully I can find an example later on to explain how they will actually work, but for now we will just discard it, and every other player sees what you are about to discard. So you can deduct from some of those cards what agenda you might be hiding at this point in time. So for example, if you are throwing out a lot of those tokens where you see the rep counters here, or the rep tokens, this could really bring the other players to the idea that you might be the opportunist player who gains points not for those rep tokens but for those cloud tokens instead. So again, we will discard this card, and therefore we gain 2 of those rep tokens, which is definitely not so bad. The remaining intel card we will keep on our hand, so there's no way to just discard those cards. You can only do that by playing those cards or by turning them in for tokens actually, which we already did. And then we could either recruit an asset or take a soldier or an agent. Each player starts the game with 1 agent and 1 soldiers, but especially the soldiers, you can never have enough of those, but also the assets are quite important. You get those for free, so you can say I want a soldier for free or an agent for free, or you would pay 3 tokens of any combination, though these can either be cloud and or rep tokens, in order to draw 2 of those asset cards. And you get to choose one of those. For once, they bring you victory points. That's a varies from card to card, depending on how powerful each of those cards actually are. So, for example, this Senator Richard Halstead here would allow you a drone strike, something I will show you later. And this one here, when you recruit an agent, also take agent. This is pretty cool. When any plot succeeds, take a soldier. I think for now I will go with this one here, because I will definitely do more recruiting than actually succeeding plots. So I think this would be the perfect starting asset card. And this one will be discarded openly again. And the card we have chosen will be put face down in front of us. We have to activate it first. And it's important to mention you can only activate your assets when it's your turn. Why should I not directly activate the asset? Good question. Basically, as long as an asset is deactivated, no one can burn it or take it away from you, so it's kind of protected. You still would receive the victory points by the end of the game, but you won't be able to use its special ability. So for now, I think as we are still in our turn, I think I will activate Saul Berenson here, because I will do a deploy agent immediately after we have dealt with this action here. And this says when you deploy an agent, draw an intel card, and I think this is what we will do next, because one of our next steps would be to deploy soldiers or insert agents. For now I will keep my soldier in order to protect my asset cards, because this is what these soldiers are really good at, protecting your assets. You can also use them for later drone strikes, but I really hope I can show that to you in a later turn. So for now I will keep this soldier in order to protect my asset, and then I will use my agent and will insert him on the game board. And I will use this agent to discover the plot of this threat here. So I can have a look at this plot card here. Of course, I will not show them to any other players. And here I will see the complexity of 7, which is pretty high. I think the complexity goes up until 9, so 7 is already pretty high. I see the real impact. So, and sometimes the impact that's printed on the back side is not corresponding to the actual impact of this case. So there are some decoys. Additionally, I see some flavor here. So we have the Amsterdam sniper attack, and we see a fallout effect, which says the case leader must discard a soldier or burn an asset. And I will come to that when we do the analysis of a threat later on. So for now, I know what I have to deal with. And of course, you will be encouraged to lie about what you've actually seen, especially if you are the terrorist mode or maybe the opportunist agent. So in this case, you could say, oh, that's an easy task. We can do that easily, or you can lie about that in order to bring other players to burn some very high intel cards, for example. So this is really all part of the game. The agent stays on the thread here because this will help us in order to neutralize this threat, and each agent present on this thread is basically worth 1 point. And that's basically it in respect to the optional action. I think I've done almost anything but the deploy soldiers action here, but I already told you I want to keep my soldier in order to protect my asset. And we just learned from our agent here that this threat here can easily force us to burn an asset or to give back a soldier. So in this case, we could more or less sacrifice one of our soldiers in order to protect our valuable assets. And then we come to the black player, and also the black player has to do the 2 mandatory steps. So first of all, we will choose an unclaimed case and claim it with a black case lead card. Then we have to play the intel cards, and the first card always has to go to a case of another investigator, basically. So we would choose this one here, and I will play this intel card face down to this case, and the second card can basically go anywhere. And here I will choose my own case in order to make sure we will be able to neutralize this threat, because in most cases the case leader gains this special advantage. In this case, we would be allowed to take an additional agent. Then we come to the optional actions, and I think we will do the same. We will discard this red card here, and therefore we would be allowed to gain 2 of those rep tokens. And I think with our next action we will also buy 1 asset, so we have to spend 3 of those tokens. And therefore we are allowed to look at the top 2 asset cards, and here we have Nicholas Brody worth 5 victory points, so this is really huge. And we have Carrie Mathison, +1 to all of your cases. She only has 3 victory points, but her special ability is very helpful. When you deploy an agent to a threat, you may also look at all the intel cards of that threat, and this is really huge, of course. So I think we will go with Carrie Mathison here, and I believe I will play her directly activated in front of me, so I will put it face down in front of me, then I will use another action to activate this card. And now if I would deploy an agent to a threat, you may also look at all the intel cards of the threat. Normally you would have to use soldiers for checking out the intel cards, but in this case she would also allow that. So I think we will do that. So we will use her agent and assign this agent to our case here. So for once we would be allowed to check out the plot card. And here we see that the complexity is 6 plus the sophistication of the organization. This means we have to beat 7 points in total. So we have to have more than 7 points. We also see the fallout effect. The case leader must discard a soldier or burn 1 asset. So I think it's a good idea to keep our soldiers in case we are not able to neutralize the threat. Though this will go back face down again. We will put the organization back on top of it. But due to Carrie Mathison's special ability, we are also allowed to check out the intel cards that are currently on this case. And here we see we have a red card, which is basically working for the threat, and our blue card we have played that's working for the agent. So we are tied here on 0. So we have to put in a lot more cards in order to neutralize this threat. Of course, our agent helps a little bit, so this brings 1 blue point basically, but definitely not enough in order to solve this case. Those 2 intel cards go back to the stack, and then that's basically it. I should have mentioned that normally you're always shuffling those intel cards so that you don't know who played which card actually. In this case it was pretty clear. There's 1 card on top of it from when we created this stack and 1 card from us, so I think it wasn't really necessary, but normally you would always shuffle this intel deck. These were basically all the actions from the black player. Now we come to the gold player. First thing we always have to do is we have to claim an unclaimed threat like this one here. There's only 1 unclaimed one left, so gold will take the sectarian insurgents with a sophistication of 1. Then we have to play 1 card to a case of another player, so we choose the case for the gray player, and I guess 1 card goes to our own case, so maybe in order to make sure we will succeed here. For our first optional action we will discard this card here. This would allow us to gain 1 of those rep tokens, and I think we will play or discard those rep tokens immediately in order to choose 1 of those 2 asset cards, and I guess we will go with Judge Jeffrey Turner here. This would increase our hand size, and once during your turn you may discard 1 intel card and draw a new card, and this can be pretty awesome. So this card goes back to the discard pile and we keep this one. And here I already forgot something, and we always forgot that. So really doing all our sessions we always forgot to redraw to our hand size. Normally you have a hand size of 3, so at the end of your turn you would be allowed to draw up to 3 cards. In this case the gold player is now allowed to draw up to 4 cards. So let's do that now for all the players on the board, which are really forgotten. So we will activate this card immediately, of course, so that we can immediately use this card. So here we have 2 cards for the gray player. You know he had 1 more card left because he only was allowed to play 1. Here we have the 3 cards for the black player, and the gold player is allowed to draw up to 4 cards. And this was already the very first turn, so the next thing is we would determine the new starting player. So we will reveal the next case lead card, and in this round the gold player will start. Currently we still don't have any imminent threats, so we can jump into step number 3 of the terrorist turn, and this would be to advance the threats. And we always start with the topmost threats, so this elevated threats go to the severe stage, and those 2 guarded threats will move up 1 space ahead as well. And again, we will reveal new threats, 3 each round, because we are playing with 3 players. Here we have another lone wolf organization threat. They start at the guarded level. Here we have the intel card. Here we have some militant separatists also starting at the guarded level. And last but not least, we have the radicalized local militia, also not very sophisticated, and they start also at the guarded level. And then we start the next round with a golden player, and you have to choose an unclaimed case first, and I think gold player goes with this one here, the radicalized local militia, so we claimed this case. Then we play 1 card, intel card, to this case, so this has to go to a case of another player. And I guess this one goes here to our own case. Again, we are allowed to discard one of our intel cards, and we go with this one. This would allow us to take one of those cloud tokens. This will be discarded, and we still have 1 card on our hand, which we can use in a later turn. Of course, we might choose to discard one of our intel cards, but I think for now I'm fine with that, so I will keep this intel card because I think it can help us. As the golden player doesn't have enough tokens, I guess he will get a soldier for free basically, and that's already it for the golden player, so we can directly move over to the gray player, who will also select a case, and I think he will go with the easier one. At least he thinks that this might be an easier one. Then he has to play 1 intel card on a foreign case, and he will go with this one here, and the second one I think will go to his own case, which makes sense. Then he will discard a card, and therefore he would be allowed to gain 1 rep token, and I guess he will also hire or gain another soldier, because what he's going to do now, he will deploy an agent in order to draw an intel card, which can definitely help him doing the next round, I guess. So let's take one of his soldiers and deploy this soldier to any threat on the board. It doesn't really matter if it's your own case, if it's claimed or unclaimed, this doesn't really matter. Which does matter is you can deploy as many soldiers as you like, as long as you're sending those soldiers to the same case. And the soldier now allows you to have a look at all the intel cards. You don't have to do that, but you can do that. And I guess the gray player will do that, so we'll have a look at those intel cards. This time we definitely will shuffle those, and then we have a look at those. Of course, that's also a hidden information to all the other players. Though in this case, this doesn't look good for the case of the gray player, so we know that now, so we can now decide to give the other players a hint what we've seen. The game really encourages not to use any fixed numbers, so it's not wise to say, hey, we have 2 3s and 1 4 and 1 1 there. You can say we have a medium threat level and we definitely have to put in some more work in order to neutralize this threat. This is definitely being allowed. So we take those cards back and put it back on the threat. Now what happens when you do, or when you leverage the ability of the soldier, you always have to put 1 random intel card on top of it. So again, you create some level of uncertainty. So this card can help you or maybe not. We don't know that. And if the next player would also send a soldier there, for example, he would then know what this top card is or what the additional card might be, but not but would add an additional intel card to that one. So this really can help you if you're really desperate. And in most cases, or most of the cards are in favor for the player, so there are more blue cards than red cards, but it's still definitely a risk. So again, you put the case lead card back on top of the threat. The soldier stays where he is because we could send an additional soldier in a later turn, for example, or another player could send a soldier there as well. And it's important to know that you can do a drone strike when you have deployed 2 soldiers to a threat. In this case, you would basically bomb it down and you would more or less, let's say, remove the threat from the game board. Sometimes that's really your last hope. Then we come to the black player. Black has to choose an unclaimed case as well. We go with the last one remaining. Then we still have to play 2 intel cards. The first intel card goes to this stack. And I guess the second intel card will go to our own threat here. That's basically it. We will discard this intel card, which lets us draw 2 of those rep tokens. And instead of spending those tokens, I think I will go with an additional agent. Black really wants to know what's going on with this case, because this case will be analyzed pretty soon. So I think he will insert one of his agents here. Though for once all these agents are worth 1 point. Again, we would be able to look at those plot cards. Let's have a look here. Okay, this was the complexity of 7, though this is definitely not an easy one. But as we have Carrie Mathison with us, we are also allowed to look at all of those cards. And this is really definitely a very, very, very cool special ability of Carrie. And we see this case is basically lost. The good thing about Carrie is that we don't have to add an additional intel card, so unlike the soldier, for example. So in this case, we just take this stack, so we know we are in trouble here, and put it back face down on the threat. Okay, so I think these were 2 turns. You see, the gameplay is pretty quick. Of course, you have to imagine when you play with more than 3 players, there is a lot more going on. So what really takes the longest is revealing the new threats, basically. And of course, you are really encouraged to have a lot of table talk and whatever paranoia going on, accusing other players. Hey, you are being the terrorist. No, you are being the opportunist. What are you doing? Why are you burning this card? And what have you. I will definitely record a second episode of this walkthrough of Homeland here, because I still want to show you the threat analysis. But if you know Battlestar Galactica, then you know what's actually going on. But still, I want to show that to you, because it's still a very, very tense moment when you reveal those cards. And there are always a lot of good surprises in this analysis phase. But I think we still have to play at least 2 more turns in order to see a threat analysis. But I think for now I will definitely stop it here. And then I hope to see you soon in my next episode of my walkthrough of Homeland. Until then, bye bye.